Well, hold on. It's coming. I'm here. Hey, welcome to WitchLab Wednesday Live. I'm your host, Tiffany Boggins, and today is January 18th, 2023. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. It's very exciting. We made it to 2023. Who knew? All right, let's see. What do we got here? Who's here? All right. We got some people watching. Hi, Sarah. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Tonight, my guest is going to be Shiva Honey, author of her newest book, The Devil's Death, which is your satanic companion for grief and dying, which is intense. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Hey, Jean and Nicholas, how's it going? All right. How are you guys doing? How's your New Year's? Any resolutions? Have you decided to be better to yourself or just go the opposite way? Just, go crazy. Who's resolved to start smoking in 2023? Just kidding. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. All right. So what's new? What's going on? I've got something I want to talk about really quick. It's sort of a soul bearing thing. But we're gonna get into it. We want to talk about something that is really important in a lot of parts of my job. So I want to say I love my job. I love what I do for a living. I'm very fortunate and I'm very grateful. I get to combine so many passions, witchcraft, antiques, interior design, and lovely oddities. Oddities are a huge part of my life and a huge part of what I work with and what I do. Hey guys. Hey, Tarot Stash. We met the other day. Malik, Betty Ann. Good to see you guys. You're just in here for you're here for the tough conversation. You ready for this? Okay. Sometimes there's tough stuff that I have to make decisions on, stuff that needs to be addressed. And right now I want to talk about ethically sourced items. Specifically, we've talked about it before with witchcraft stuff. You guys were with me on the journey to find like the right sage and the right Palo Santo and that. But now I want to talk about oddities. So what constitutes ethically sourced items, right? That's a tricky area. So I started deep diving because things have been brought to my attention. So standard definition that I've found is ethically sourced means that the animal or insect from which we are using the bones or parts was not intentionally killed by a human for the purpose of art, sport, cruelty, or profit. And I agree with this. This statement, it works for me, and I think that it works for the vulture culture that we are in, at least from what I understand vulture culture to be, which is, we use stuff that is found. We use stuff that is already dead. We don't kill things for the art, for the oddities. But I feel like that statement leaves a lot to be determined. Like, I feel like it leaves a lot of, it brings up more questions, right? It's more of a beginning of a discussion that would help us figure out guidelines, which then constitutes ethical to you, to me, because it's a subjective term. And I am the buyer for the shop. I'm the one who decides what we're going to carry, who we're going to get it from. And I try to do the best with the information that I have, right? But there is this gray area, and you have to decide how you feel about the things that fall in that gray area. It's a learning process. Yeah. And I feel like with most things, there's a range, there's a spectrum with this, right? Like everything from like, I find this to be incredibly ethical in my eyes, as in like it was dead when it was found and then it was used, to create art or something else. And on the other side of the spectrum, it's killing things to put in jars to sell. So, and those are, pretty much the two sides, and I'm saying put in jars as in like make taxidermy, make art, make whatever out of it. And there's a lot of really atrocious things that happen in the oddities community. If you look up ethically sourced oddities on Etsy, and this is how wide of a definition you can get, in the first page, they have bats that they're just selling in boxes one after another. Bats are not ethically sourced. Bats are killed. There's no protection. They are killed for this. If you got a bat in a box, it was killed to be in that box. which is a bummer because they're beautiful. It's beautiful art, but it doesn't sit right with me. So, it just depends on who you ask, right? And so you have to ask specific questions. And so where's my line, right? And recently I've had some line defining situations that have popped up that have been hard to deal with, but in the long run, I think best for me to define where I am. And so we had some specimens in that I thought through my questioning were ethical enough for me. As in, I asked, where did you source them, and where were you getting your stuff? And what they said to me was that they have friends who give them dead things. I get that. I'm that friend. I'm the friend you give dead things to. Because we then do stuff with it. But also, they got stuff from food suppliers and snake food suppliers. So we've got breeder stuff, and then they said reptile breeder friends who I'm assuming give them animals who have passed away naturally, right? But then I found out later through hearing some things and doing some more deeper questioning that it wasn't as ethical as I thought or I wanted it to be, because the stuff that I bought looked to me like found stuff, right? We've got random stuff, a shrew, a mouse, chipmunk, that kind of thing. And here's where it gets sticky. And I know where I sit on it, but obviously where the artist sits on it is different than I do. Because finding out that some of these things, not all of them, but one or two, were definitely given to them in live traps. So they take a live trap and then they euthanize it for the purpose of putting it in a jar. This is where I have a sticky problem, because if someone hands me a live animal, I'm not going to kill it for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it got saved from that house, because it was part of pest control, and so and then there's this, if something is being eliminated because of a pest problem, I can understand the argument that euthanizing it is much more humane than traditional traps, whether those be glue traps, snap traps, or poison. But I also know that if someone hands me a live animal, and also I don't want that I don't want to sell that. So the ones that I found out that I still had, I actually still have, because I don't really want to. But then there's this other part. So I figured out, obviously I knew going in I would not want that, but I didn't know that's what I was getting. So again, learn something, ask more questions. But then there's these octopus tentacles that we have in jars that are from food supply. Same vendor, right? And for some people, this falls on ethical enough. For me, it bothers me because it feels lazy to me, because then you've got a production line of oddities, whereas oddities aren't supposed to be a constant supply. It's whatever we found, right? That's the whole point. So yeah, it almost adds to killing more for the food supply, but in order to put it in a jar for profit, for decor, right? So, and also all the stuff that we know about octopi and things like that. And so this is something that I've been debating about and worrying about, and I've decided to cut off that supply. And we even didn't put them out for a long time because I felt weird about it. Again, it's feeling not so good in my stomach. So, but we did put them out. And I was like, you know what? I would rather them go to homes. I would rather them go to people that love them, and I'm just not going to buy them anymore. And then there was a thing that happened. My social media person was misinformed. She thought they were ethically sourced, and she made a post about them saying that they were. And I didn't know about the post. I didn't see it until she asked me how they were sourced, and I told her food supply. And then she answered that person. And then I saw a comment come through on one of those notification things that was like, that is not ethical. And I was like, oh, no, it's not. Oh, I didn't realize we were having a discussion about this. And I didn't realize the post said ethically sourced. So I'm here to tell you that I don't think that they are. And I have feelings about that. But it's again, it's this weird gray area. And so but it's made me realize where I don't want to be. So, and the thing is, I was already feeling a little gross about it. And then the post and then being called out was really like, oh God, this sucks. But you know what? It gives me an opportunity to talk about it with you guys and have an honest discussion about mistakes were made in my decision making. And because I didn't do enough research in the beginning, I didn't thoroughly go through my thoughts or feelings about it. And I ignored my belly, you know. What is it that Seamus from the Druid says? That, you know, you make lots of mistakes, but it's when you ignore your gut that you pay the most, you know, and I feel like that's fair. Taxidermy and wet specimens and things like that have been a long-term hobby for me. I love them. I have so many dead things that people have given me that I want to make into specimens. And I feel like this is maybe a hint that I should be getting to that as opposed to trying to source them from places that I don't know about. And if you're worried about this other stuff that we have, our taxidermy guy, Jack, a lot of you guys have met him at the dark market and things. They are the bones they bring us, they're roadkill, they're fined, or they're from farms that he has relationships with where they've died naturally. You know, like it's the stuff we have otherwise is I feel very strongly about. And the other things that I source personally, that I actually go to the people's houses that make it. So yeah, that's the gig. I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. Oh, and I have some quotes from somebody who actually kind of put some things together, because there's a lot of different leeway here. But like this guy says, and this is from a Tumblr page that is really old, but I think it's still fair. It's important to know that ethics are very complex, fluid, and highly personal. And if you are wanting to know exactly where it's sourced, ask questions, because that's the only way you're going to know. Because if you ask somebody if it's ethically sourced, they're going to tell you yes or no based on their idea, their range, where it fits on their spectrum. And that may or may not be okay with you. And he goes on, whether it be roadkill, found dead of unknown but assumed natural causes, not killed specifically for hide, head, whatever, killed as an invasive pet species, hunted legally, farmed according to regulations for animal welfare as designated by different resources. So these are all just things to think about when you are wanting to ask those questions. And, you know, and there's things that I feel like I need to do more research before I can figure out where I fall on those things. You know, so anyway, that's my rant about it, and my also soul cleaning to you guys that, you know, that's a thing that can happen. Sometimes we make decisions based on what we've got, and then we reevaluate this and realize they're dumb. Okay. And yes, always trust your gut. That's absolutely very good advice. Okay. So let's go on to some lighter things. Upcoming stuff. Sunday, February 1st, Circle of the Dark Mother will be having their monthly discussion meeting. This month it is Tree of Life or Tree of Shadows, or both. So they'll be talking about Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and then also I don't know if it's there or if it's like mirrored up and down. I don't know. But you can ask Mark. He knows all of this stuff. And that is still online for now. And I'm going to give you a little link to that so you can get the link if you want it from the Facebook page. What's next? Jean says reevaluation is a constant work of humanity and witchcraft specifically. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the stuff we've learned about ethics and witchcraft over the past, 30 years has been huge leaps and bounds, I think. Just, trying to respect each other and, I'll just get along and not, be dicks to each other. And Jean also says Mark has been posting some great videos on Lilith on YouTube. Oh, yes. He may have links in that event. I hope he does. But if he doesn't, and you want to find them, I know where you can find them, which is on the Cultum Librorum page. Cultum Librorum is the book club for WitchLab. And then you can just join. It's free and it's fun. And there's no January book. But I know that the February book is the Jason Mankey, Estrella Taylor, Modern Witchcraft and Greek Gods. So I'm going to give you a link for that too. And so if you want to join, and be a part of the book club, or if you just want to join so you can go find Mark's links. Either way, don't forget to answer the questions so that they can approve you. Oh yeah. And Tarot Stash, thank you. Thank you very much. They said, I respect you for your honesty and openness about the topic. Yeah, I think it's important to be direct, and I think it's important to be honest, and it's definitely important to fess up when you feel like you've screwed up. Okay. More coming out. We don't have too much, so hang with me. Okay, Cultum Laborum. Oh, and there's a Tarot Tea Party. Tarot Tea Party is back. We got to do last month's January's Tarot Tea Party in the new event space, which means we had 40 people. So I was going to say we can't sell out, but evidently we can. And so February's Tarot Tea Party is coming up. Thursday, February 9th. It's the Lovers for February. And as of this morning, there are only 7 tickets left. So if you want to go, don't pass it up. Okay, I think that is all of my stuff that I need to tell you guys. All right, so we're going to get our guest out here. She is a Satanist, a writer, a death doula, a designer, a business owner, and literally just full of surprises. She is the author of The Devil's Tome, a modern book of satanic ritual and what? Oh, wait, no, sorry. That's not the right one. Devil's Tome and The Devil's Deck, and her newest book, The Devil's Death. I'm doing it. Okay. Please allow me to introduce the wonderful, the lovely Shiva Honey.
Woohoo! That was a full surprises part. That's cool. No one's ever introduced me like that. That's great. Yeah.
Full of surprises. I want to tell you, you helped me so much today. So I reached out to Shiva Honey of the Satanic Temple for tax advice, and she delivered. And so this is what I mean by full of surprises. Like, seriously, you helped me a lot in my conversation with my accountant, cleared all that shit up.
It's my pleasure. It's such a confusing world. Like, we were talking about this briefly, but I don't think I ever intended having a business with what I do now, but now I'm a full-time artist and writer. And with that comes all this responsibility, obviously, for like doing your taxes right. And as somebody who's an activist community, it's like one thing you want to make sure that you're doing is everything legally everything legally to the T. So I've spent a lot of time making sure that I'm doing all the right tax stuff. It's so hard to find help with this. I've gone through a lot just to make sure I'm on the right track with all my business stuff. So I'm happy to share it. I always tell people it's like one of the greatest thrills to be able to share this knowledge, because it came at me hard and it was well thought over. You know what I mean? So I love it if people don't have to deal with the same bullshit that I had to go through with all that. So
yeah, I appreciate your help, and I will be asking you more questions in the future. I want you to know that.
It's probably going to be likewise. Like I don't know a ton of people that own businesses there, and so I've been just figuring this out on my own. So I feel like the more we can get together and talk about this, the better it'll be, because I have a lot of questions, and I'd love to lean on people more to figure out what I'm doing. So what you've done is really impressive. Like, I remember, I think when we probably met around the time that you were starting out with WitchLab, and I've just seen it blossom over the years, and it's so wonderful what you're doing and the community engagement that you have, and yeah, it's just really fantastic. So
thank you very much. I appreciate all of that. And I will help you in any way I possibly can. I think it's important, especially for small business owners, whether witchy or not, to stick together and share information.
I think so too. And I feel like, the reason I too have done so much of the stuff on my own is because as a practicing witch and a Satanist, it's a lot more difficult to like go into a networking community or something like that and be like, so this is what I do for a living. There's a lot of baggage that comes with this. So it's much harder to find like mentorship and people to give you a hand when you're running a more non-traditional business, So
absolutely. There's a lot of weird questions. My banker, when I went in and I opened a savings account for WitchLab, so I'd already been to this guy once, and he was the same guy who opened my checking account years and years ago. And he's like, so a cult, huh? That's like Nazi stuff, right? And I'm like,
gee whiz.
Wow, buddy. So like you only know that word from like Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of shit? Like,
oh, that's so frustrating.
Yeah, so it is hard, and you have to sort of be an ambassador.
Yeah, I think especially like in the Midwest too, when it's like much less of a progressive sort of, especially when you get into the financial world, and just the business world in general, it's so much less progressive than I assume like the coasts are. So it's like, yeah, you have to be an ambassador, and it's a complicated thing. It's a rough road, but it's definitely worth it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hard decisions and everything. 4 accounts in 4 years and everything. It's all worth it.
Yeah, I've had 3, I think 3 or 4 probably in the same amount of time. So yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, it is. Definitely.
So all right, let's oh, right. So how's your new year? Like it's the new year. Did you make resolutions or did you party?
Yeah, I felt well, I've just been like laying low for the last couple of years, to be quite honest. I found like to write the books and to now I just finished a record that I'm going to put out this summer. So like doing all that, it really has, and plus with COVID, I've really had to just kind of become really embrace the hermit, you know, and I've just been staying at home and work doing this work. I feel like I can't get out much and like interact with people a lot to do the bigger pieces, which I'm working on. I'm working on being more social. But as soon as the new year came in, I felt like I just felt like something big shifted. You know, I always work on visioning during the new year. I've got some rituals I do for that, and I find it's like a really great marker to reflect on. You know,
Mhm.
where you're going, where you've been. But I feel like things kind of opened up for me a lot with the turn of the year, and I've been a lot more. I've been getting out more, and I've got some cool plans for this year. So yeah, it's been really good so far. How about you?
It's been amazing so far. We like I don't know if you heard anything but before about the new we have a new event space. It's gonna
Oh, I
mumble
did
me
hear
through that.
about that. I was like, damn, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been really focusing on that. I have to make really hard decisions about the ceiling color.
Oh, wow, nice.
I know. So it's so like decorating is one of my favorite things. And so
Yeah,
like getting to like create this experience in this where it's not retail, right? I don't have to worry about the shelving. I just get to put up drapes and black mirrors and candle holders and, do whatever I want.
yeah. I love it. That's so exciting.
And
Wow,
it really
and
is.
it's so important to have spaces like this in the community, so I'm so glad that you were able to expand and, like, there's this place for people to go. That's awesome.
It's
Congratulations.
yeah. It's thank you. It's really great. And it's nice for my teachers because they're no longer capped at like a certain amount. Like you can only have 13 people in a class, but now we've got more than double of that. So it's really great for them. And so
Amazing.
it's
I remember you hearing just you saying now that you had, like, 40 people for one of your tarot classes. That's awesome. That's such great attendance. Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing.
it was amazing. And so before that, we'd only had, 13. And she would always sit at one of the tables with us, because we're talking about 3 tables.
Sure.
And when she got there and she saw like the sea of like tables coming out from the stage, and she's just like, I'm like, you got to be on the stage because they have to be able to see you. And she was like, okay, okay, I can do this. It's
Yeah.
a much different experience to, than sitting with the people.
Oh, yeah, totally. That's so
But,
cool.
but it's fun. So we got a comment here. Kate says, it's so true. It took my mom months to find a shop space that would rent to her solely because she was opening a metaphysical tarot shop.
Oh,
I got turned down for so many places. They were just, suddenly it's unavailable. Suddenly they're they're going in a different direction.
right.
It's a rental space. What are you talking about?
That's so wild. For us in Detroit, when we were starting out the chapter, back in 2014, I mean, to even just be able to rent a space for an event for the unveiling, which was in 2015, where we took the Baphomet to have an unveil to the world, which you were at. I remember seeing you there. And it was like we had to shift, I think it was 5 or 6 places that had confirmed and then backed away once the word got out that that's where we were going at. So I thought about like renting a place, like it might be down the line when I'm doing more one-on-one work or something that's in the cards. But yeah, yeah, I can't only imagine how complicated that's going to be. And just wild.
Yeah, but growth, man. And growth in a way that is needed, not just for the sake of it, but like, you know, I want to do more community stuff. I want to do more and I can't do that if I'm constantly clearing all my stuff out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to be like I want this place to be a place that people want to like, you know, get married in and like have parties in and have intimate things and also classes but in this, beautiful and encompassed atmosphere.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'd love to come down maybe in the next year or two to do something with you there. That sounds fantastic. It's so
That would
awesome.
be amazing. You should do that. I would love that.
Yeah.
uh, William says, hail.
Hey, what's up?
And Michelle says, and hi, Michelle, by the way, is Shiva in Salem? And do you work at the temple there? You're in Detroit, yeah?
I'm in Detroit, yeah. I'm trying to say that less and less just so because people are real weird and I get stalkers and stuff like that, but I am in Detroit. I do go to Salem. I do events at the headquarters in Salem. I started doing my group rituals there, I think in 2017. And last year I did a big weekend, like a sort of weekend retreat called Witches Weekend during Hexanot weekend where I taught a bunch of classes and I had a book release from my newest book. And that was lovely. So when I can, I love to get out there. That's a really great space, and wonderful to work in.
I still haven't been out there, and I want to go to Salem so bad.
Oh yeah, you have to.
It'll happen eventually. It'll be one of those things where someone's like, they're going and they want me to go, so we'll figure it out.
I love it.
Jean says, WitchLab weddings. I'm all in.
Yeah.
We had our staff party over there. So we did, I made it a haunted holiday party because we always do it after Christmas. So we don't mess with, family plans and all that. So we can really do whatever we want. So it was like a haunted holiday party. Everybody had to dress as somebody dead or something dead. And then we all made like, those like little cheesecloth ghosts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's so fun. That was great. And everybody sang karaoke. I was very proud of all of them.
Oh, karaoke too. Jeez, my kind of party. That sounds fantastic.
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was really great. Okay, I have so many things I want to talk to you about. Hold on, where's my things are disappearing off of my screen. Stop. Go away. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right. I'm sorry that I've had to cancel on you. This interview was scheduled for, oh my God, like 6 months ago originally, I think.
I had to cancel on you first. That's another thing that's been happening with me is my dad died 2 years ago. I write about that in the book, and my mom just got really sick. So like things have just been like very, very strange the last couple of years. So I'm so glad to be here finally, like coming out and ready to chat,
Excellent. I'm so happy you're here. So let's talk about the Devil's Death. This book is amazing. When just the introduction, when you talk about working with the other two women, the biologist, Betty Lee, I believe, and then the other one is a herbalist, yes?
Yeah, Heather, the herbalist, yeah.
So as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I am in, because it's like getting advice from all different angles. My question is, how did they contribute to the book? Like, how did you guys do it together?
Yeah, so initially, I think the book was conceived right before COVID happened. I remember being at the gym and like on the treadmill and talking because like I find I can focus better when I talk and walk or something like that. Talking to Betty, and we've known each other for a long time, but we just randomly had another encounter after years, and we only knew each other very loosely. I guess we met a couple times back in the day, and then we had a very like intense meeting a few years ago, and she was like, I have this basically a terminal illness, an incurable illness, and I've been looking for a death doula. Would you be my death doula? And so that kind of started the journey. I think I had started, maybe I conceived of doing the death doula training right before that, but so we were like talking about this, and she'd also helped edit my first book, The Devil's Tome.
Okay.
She had, she's a PhD biologist. She's had to kind of back away from that work because of her illness, but she is an incredible researcher and has worked through the healthcare system herself as somebody who's, got an illness that's quite serious, and just brought this wealth of information to the experience. So as I was walking through kind of the steps of becoming her doula, and like we were discussing the experience together and coming up with like tools for her to use and plan and that sort of thing, we just simultaneously just incorporated it into the book. So that's kind of how things worked out with her. I always start with like a big outline of what I want to have in the book. And so she and I collaborated on that. And then we just like put our nose to the grindstone and just kind of went through bit by bit and did research. This is the most research heavy book I've ever done. And I was a researcher in a previous life, so it's quite familiar to me, but also like it's been a while, and really sensitive stuff that we're talking about. So I want to make sure that I was like had the best science and the best insights that we know of so far for a lot of these topics. And so we worked at that level. And then Heather really kind of took things on separately from the two of us. So we've also worked together for a number of years. We have co-run this event called the Witches Night Bazaar that had run very large. It was like 500 or 600 people each time, basically a night market that we were holding in Detroit a couple times a year preceding COVID, and hopefully we'll get back to it next or this year. But we'd done that together. We've done classes together, ritual oriented classes where I come in with the ritual section and she'll come in with the herbalism counterpart. So that's kind of what we did when we approached this. You know, I've been working with her and she's one of my best friends for a number of years. And I was just like, you know, I could certainly like look up what sort of and give people advice based on, you know, some research, but I'm like, she is an expert at what she does. I trust her. We're on a very similar, we've also had, you know, we've had losses kind of simultaneously, and we've been able to talk about like our approach to death, and comfort each other through those things. So I thought she was the perfect person to contribute. And I kind of just said, like, do you want to, you know, I'm going to be writing about these various sections of the book. And then at the end, I'd like to talk about herbalism. And, you know, I know that you have a lot of experience here, and this is a particular area of interest for you. So I just let her do her thing, basically. And she came back with a lot of wonderful insight and advice. And then I ended up doing all the illustrations too, for that part of the book, and a bunch and the rest of it. So that was fun for me. I ended up learning quite a bit.
Oh, that's always fun. Is
Yeah.
when you're working with somebody else who knows more than you, so that you can bring that expertise to it, and then
Yeah.
you end up, you know, getting that out of it too.
Yeah, I have a very small area of expertise, and I love to learn from other people. So when I know somebody's like, you know, got their shit together, I'm like, let's work, let's work,
Yeah.
let's do it, you know? So it turned out to be such a wonderful sort of template for how to do a book that I think we're going to do another one similar next year too. But yeah, it was a really cool collaboration, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, I have no idea how other people do these things. Like, I didn't expect myself to be a writer. I felt very compelled to do my first book and wrote that within like 6 months based on mostly lived experience. And then this one, it was like, took more like a year or two, and it was very research heavy. But we just, you know, Betty has done dissertations before. She's written books, you know, she's been published. So it was just kind of us figuring out what felt good, the sort of partnerships we wanted to have, and just it was just up to us to figure out how this gets done, you know.
It's so well put together, and the thing is, I can hear your writing in it, like when I read it, because it's very much like The Devil's Home in the same sort of, it's you, like it's, you know, it's listening to you talk, but being able to pull in all that expertise while you're writing is so valuable, you know. And I love the cooperative energy, the cohesive energy, like all the words. It's
Thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I was so lucky to be able to work with both of those folks. And one of the things that we talked about, I think all three of us, and especially Betty and I, because we worked so closely in getting like a lot of the book written and edited, was that we didn't want to have, you know, I think I've spent a lot of my life before I kind of came into my own business being like very stressed out, being in these hierarchical systems that I didn't like, having like adversarial relationships with people that I worked with. And I'm like, if I get to do my own business, if I get to make my own way and be a creative person, like I do not want to bring that sort of energy into any projects that I work at. So I want to be like on the same level with everybody. I want everything to be consensual. I want it to be like as stress-free as possible. I want to be accepting. It's like, you know, I want to get rid of these little barriers in my brain that have built up over time, and have people work in conditions that feel like work together in a way that feels nurturing and like loving, and you know, not super stressed. So I think we did we definitely had our moments, but like I think one of the biggest accomplishments to come out of that book is the fact that we were able not only to do it, but do it in a way that I felt like was quite gentle and like caring. And so I love that.
It is a deep dive into pulling apart basically what you want out of your ideal death, right? And it is it's an emotional ride, friend. It gets I read through months and months ago, before we were supposed to have our first show a while ago, I read through the first chapter, and I just reading through it, I had to put it down after a while because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that comes up. Even just reading the questions, you can't help, even if you're just skimming it, you can't help but wonder what your answer is to those questions.
Yeah.
And then it's almost rapid fire where you're like, oh, it's a lot.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then so reading the second chapter, which literally took me a while, today, I'm going to be honest with you, I read it today. And even then, like, and I loved it. But at the end of it, I was like, I literally can't read anymore right now. Like I have to
Mhm.
put it down. Like there was just so much like overwhelming emotion going through me, thinking about the death wishes, thinking about what are the things I want for my ideal death? Who do I want to be there? Where do I want it to be? And and what kind of mark do I want? God damn it, Shiva, I don't know. It was just like, what do you want to be remembered for? So that was really and I don't even know if that's chapter 2. I think that's just second part of chapter 1. So it's really intense, but it leaves me with so much to think about every time. And I absolutely love the quote that you have in there. Do you have a death wish?
Oh yeah.
Actually, it's so considerate of you to ask.
That was all Betty. Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
I just love it. I pictured in somebody in like a 20s hat just being like, many.
Yeah, that's yeah, we love like the concept of the death wish because we just thought it was such a funny play on words and concepts. And then we ended up creating a website for it too, deathwishes.org, where you can get like a lot of the information in the book for free because we want it to be accessible and everything. But we were just like, yeah, death wishes, like let's claim that. Like it really is what it is, right? Like there's no better way to explain it than like and I think a lot of what we were trying to do is destigmatize death within our work. So we're just like, yeah, death wishes, like let's make it snappy. Let's really, that's what it is. Like, what do you wish? What do you wish? And it can be a really compassionate thing to work through with a person or yourself, you know?
And I always think it's a good exercise to ask yourself, what do you want? It's one of
Absolutely.
the hardest things to answer. And it's so important to actually give it some actual focus and to
Mhm,
do the rituals. You're basically asking yourself, what do I want for this?
mhm.
Your ideal. What is it that you would have if possible? I can't help but going to like vacation spots. I'd
Yeah.
like my deathbed to be at the sea so that the breeze is blowing the curtains and you know.
It. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, what was I going to say? I think, yeah, that was kind of the idea. It was, we wanted to make something really evocative. And I always get the two rituals confused. So I'm just going to look up specifically the two rituals at the beginning of the book. So the way the book is structured for those who haven't read it yet is that we're really trying to, I think, approach it from like a practical and logical perspective. So basically we have an introduction about who we are. Then it goes on to the first chapter, which is about this concept of death wish, which is death wish is a good death. So it's before you can get into like figuring out what you want specifically with your funeral or healthcare or legacy. It's like let's just dig into the basics, right? And for me as a witch, I feel like that question you just mentioned, like what do you want? That is like the core of my practice, I guess. That's what I always come back to within myself, and that um, I feel like where my power comes from. So I'm like, and because culturally this isn't something that we have typically embraced, and like the questions aren't, have yet to be like embraced by polite society. It's like, yeah, we have to start out this conversation by just like starting to confront the most basic or starting to embrace the most basic elements of death in life. And I think so, like the first ritual is called a good death, where it's like these basic questions. It's a ritual, but it's this question starts out with like, like what brings my life meaning? What brings me joy? What do I want my legacy to be? And then, what do I fear? How do I define suffering? What could decrease my fear and anxiety at the end of life? Basic stuff about healthcare and what your experience has been within that system, because that becomes a big component to our lived
Huge.
experience and our death, right? So really it's a way, I feel like this book in a sense is sort of, it's half and half. I feel like when you start to embrace death and grief, what you're also embracing is like life and your own purpose and your experience. You're taking ownership not only of how you die, but like really figuring out how you want to live, which I think is like very, very life affirming and can be like a powerful sort of unexpected side consequence of doing this type of work. But that's what I really envisioned it as. As much as this book is a celebration and encouragement to embrace death and grief, it's also an opportunity for people to celebrate life and understand yourself better. And when you do this work, which is not, this book is not for the faint of heart.
It's not.
The faint of heart. And honestly, like and not to say you have to be at the right place in your life to be able to do this sort of thing, coming from the culture that we come from and like the sort of values that are around us. And it's very hard. Like that was another thing with this book too. It's like, I've gotten a lot of really, really positive feedback from it, but I think this has taken people a lot longer to digest than like The Devil's Tome. That's a much more straightforward, like, again, lived experience type book. Whereas this one is like, you are possibly touching things you've never thought of before or have buried, and you're touching fears that you've buried within yourself.
Feelings are what you're making me feel.
Yeah.
And defining those feelings. Why do I have those feelings? What, it's very, what brings me joy? Like that's kind of stuff can immediately cut you into being very deep. And so but I think it's important, and I think it's an important thing. And I think that the more we expose the culture to it, the people to it, that it will become more accepted, that these questions about what you want and honestly think about what makes you happy. Honestly think about all of these hard questions. It's an entire like 2 pages of hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more we do it, the better, right? Like I think that the more we expose ourselves to asking these hard questions.
Yeah, that it's okay to do, that you're not alone in it too. And that's what I've been trying to do too, or what I'm going to do in the next year or two, is try to have like Q&As and like presentations with congregations of TST and other groups that want it, just so that we can like not just go on this journey alone, but like have the community support to like back each other up in this sort of exploration. I actually did a talk with one of the congregations in Texas yesterday, and one of the folks that was on that call was like, so how would you, how do you suggest, if people are feeling isolated, or if people, don't know who they want to have? I've got a lot of weird concepts in the book, but like who they want their death party to be, or like what, how they can work through these sort of things. Like, what do you suggest we do? And it's like, I don't have any like bullet answers for this, but I do think that by just starting to have these sort of conversations like we're having tonight, and getting with our covens or congregations or whoever it is, and like, just like our friends or just friends, and embracing these things that make us feel very vulnerable, I think things slowly start to shift.
I agree. And I think it's that you're doing important work. I think that getting it out there so people can look at it and get engaging with it, and start to normalize it. And like you said, talk to each other about it. So we have a question. Alquimista de la Obscuridad. I'm going to go with that accent because I have no idea, but I love your name. Question: Shiva, what do you think about Carl Jung, and how would he approach modern Satanism in his Theorema Arbor Archetypes?
All right. Well, I have no idea, to be honest. I mean, I know about, I'm not an expert at Carl Jung. Obviously I've like read a little bit of his work, and I think it's very interesting. But I'm not really sure. I don't know what he would think of us, really. I mean, I think his work with archetypes was fascinating. I think he did a lot of interesting work with tarot and in psychology. But it's hard to say. Good question. I just don't know where to go with it exactly.
I feel like Carl Jung was definitely more accepting of weird shit than Freud.
Oh, yeah, Freud is like, shitbag. But yeah, Carl Jung did a lot of interesting. I mean, the whole field of therapy and like psychology and psychiatry is so interesting and has really terrible parts and good parts. But I think Jung's work was I really think he paved a pathway for a lot of like occult, like newer Western like occult practice, and gave us a lot of insights that I think again, going back to this talk about like community acceptance of death, and like also like these different ways and avenues of viewing spirituality. I just feel like between the death community and death doulas, and also like the witch community, there's just been like so many explosions of interesting conversations that have happened. I think a lot of it does have some like connection with his work, but yeah, it's cool to see.
He really believed that there were beacons along the way through history that were ways that if you could find them would give you the answers occult wise, like because he, when he discovered alchemy, and that was sort of like a key for him, that unlocked so many things. And if I had to guess, I would say that Jung, he's a pretty smart guy. I think that he would approve of modern Satanism in sort of distant way.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the concept of alchemy. So one of my chapter on grief is actually called Anguish as Alchemy.
Yeah.
Which I think Betty and I coined a couple of like novel concepts here. And I really like the Anguish as Alchemy concept. But the ability, I think one of the things, if people can get anything out of the book, is that the message about grief is that you have, you can't make yourself do anything about it. Really, like you have to just embrace the experience of it. And sometimes within it, you can find this sort of kernel of transformation that can really give you new insights about life, to change your view on your path, can make you stronger, can help, alert you of things that are wrong. Grief can be such a teacher in this way, and can really take us from a place of this pit of despair to this like sort of, I'm thinking of the word to use because I don't want to use enlightenment, because I don't think that's a good word to use, or like I don't think I should be using it. But insight, I guess it can be a way of transformative insight if we can open ourselves up to it and be gentle on ourselves, and embrace it.
The change that it is, and the grief that comes with it, and growing as a part of it, because that's the last thing you want to do, because grief makes you just want to curl up and not.
Yeah.
But the working through it, and like you said, just letting it happen, right? Letting it happen, work your way through it. Tell me more about the Anguish's Alchemy, because I wanted to read it today, but I was done.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe I'll just like read. So when I've done a book,
I would love for you to read.
I read just a little bit about the introduction for folks before, and I'll probably start crying when I read it, honestly. So I was reading this in like the absolute wake of my father dying, who I had a very complicated relationship with and was abusive. And that's something that I deal with in the book too, is that, grief can show up in so many unexpected ways, especially if you're dealing with a person that you've had a complicated or abusive relationship with. And I feel like there aren't enough people talking about like, what do you do when somebody like that dies around you? And like, what am I supposed to be feeling? And there could be like so much shame and confusion when it comes to that. But I think I was in the car right after I found out that he died, and I just wrote this sort of introduction. So let me think of how much, it's like 2 pages, but let me think of how much I want to read about this. But I guess I'll just go from the beginning. Okay, so, grief is a complex emotion. It can be messy, confusing, unpredictable, long-lasting, and full of ups and downs. It can stay with us a long time, moving sideways and backwards through time, emerging when we least expect it. Just as we think we've worked through an aspect, it can reappear again in an old form or a new one. It's a universal human experience that we encounter regularly, as it accompanies the many losses we endure throughout our lives. Grief can appear as a consequence of an innumerable number of situations. It predictably shows its many forms as we approach death and experience the loss of someone in our lives. Despite being a natural human response to loss and a gateway to healing, it's not often a welcome guest. It's become something that's been pathologized and medicalized, something to be fixed rather than seen to be a natural response to loss. Growing up, I noticed grief was something I saw most people avoid, diminish, and judge. So often I saw grief hidden, shunned, and shamed in the religious and cultural environments I inhabited. That never felt right to me. Grief is not a weakness or an imperfection. It's a part of being human. I think that it's important that we try to open up to grief and try to understand it. Repression rarely serves us in the long run, and honoring this emotional challenge can help us to better understand ourselves and our needs. So a little bit more. Accepting grief can be a satanic act. It's a way to honor our humanity. When it's respected, it helps us to understand ourselves better and acquaint us with our needs and desires. It alerts us when things are wrong. Living fully and embodying the tenets of Satanism can connect us to great loss. As we embrace our nature and create lives that honor ourselves, we often come into conflict with others as we let go of people and ideas that no longer serve us. We take risks and open ourselves to the loss that failure may bring, knowing that it's a natural result of living authentically. Let's see. So then I give a summary of the chapter. And let's see, I'll just read the last paragraph. Consider your work with grief and loss as an alchemical exercise. Grief is a great revolution. In its violence, it transforms us within and without. Let it become a tool of growth and transformation. Use it as an opportunity to cultivate self-knowledge, compassion, and understanding. Embrace grief, anguish, and their accompanying challenges to make yourself more resilient. Become an alchemist. Acknowledge and embrace your grief. Work with it. Transform it into something that can be of use to you. So that's kind of my little thing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Everyone else is clapping too. You just can't hear them, but that was beautiful. Nicholas has a thing. Nick says, I totally feel that. My stepdad recently died, and we had a very abusive and damaging relationship. I am not grieving his passing. Not grieving his passing gives me such a feeling of guilt and shame.
So, if you don't mind me just making an observation, perhaps you are grieving, but it just doesn't look the way you expected it to, and that's where the grief and the guilt and shame comes from. Because I certainly had that experience with my father when he passed, and the one before that, my stepdad who died, I had a party after he died because I felt like this actual threat to my life was gone. And I'm sorry that for your loss, and I'm sorry that you're feeling those things right now. But yeah, I hope that you can work through the grief in a way that feels right to you, and that the shame and those feelings eventually disperse. It's really rough to go through.
It is. It's conflicting. It's confusing feelings.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of woo, but you don't want to say that.
No, yeah.
Because you didn't get along, but then you feel bad because you should. You should grieve. But
I felt when the latest dad died, I felt sadness, like regret, but then I also felt relief and somewhat, happiness. And
right. There's it's confusing. It's mixed, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of the process.
So Kate had mentioned this earlier. She said, it's so freeing being in control of one's death wishes. This is a small example, but my mom and I write and update our own obituaries every year. And a lot of people see this as strange, but it's a small form of taking control of your own narrative after death and being able to have a say in one's own legacy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly Addams Family of you, and I love it. And I think that it's really healthy because you're honing in right there. What do you want to be remembered for? You probably already have that in your obituary thing. Like, what's important to you?
I love that so much. What a great relationship that you can do it together too, and have that experience. That's really beautiful.
Kate's mom is a good friend of mine. She's Mystic Rose. She owns Mystic Rose. It's Mystic Rose, but I think it's like metaphysical shop or something. But yeah, they are lovely people, and her mom has taught me a lot of things. Mm-hmm. She's actually taught classes for us and stuff. I love her. And I love you too, Kate. But yeah, it's so the death wishes thing, it has become, because I had interviewed Mortellus about her Do I Have to Wear Black book that came out a few years ago, and then reading this, I often bring up the topic of death when I'm talking to my friends, and I have become the person who holds the records.
Yeah.
So I'll just start, we'll start talking about it, and then they're like, oh, well, I want this. I want this. This is important to me. I want this music played. I want this to happen. And I now have paragraphs and paragraphs from the people that I hang out with often, because every time I tell somebody about it, they're like, well, take my list. I'm like, well, all right, well.
That's amazing.
I have so many notes.
I feel like that's so good.
It's and it's because you are doing this, because you are introducing this into our even awareness, people try to avoid thinking about death. We've said that lots of times, but what happens is when we avoid thinking about death is then it sneaks up on mostly our family.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with this. And whereas if I've got no, guys, look, I got a whole list. They told me I've got it. We just go by this.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to know.
Yeah. Well, one of the concepts I talk about in my book, so the section that's on funerals specifically, it's all about funeral planning, and it talks about specifically a lot of tips, like how to do things in a way that you want, what your options are, because this whole proposition can be very expensive, can be very stressful. Like, to your point, if you don't know what your friends or family want, and you're having to figure this out yourself, it's such a hard position to be in. It can be
on top of grieving.
On top of grieving, right. And so one of the things that I ended up doing is, and if you go to the website, mydeathwishes.org, you can get a free copy of this, but I've created templates actually for exactly what you're talking about, where it's like, you fill this out, it's got, and I'll tell you about another interesting concept that I think you'll like, but it's like a narrative description, what I want with the body location, and things down to what's forbidden at the funeral, if you want a bouncer at the funeral, like what scents do you want, what music do you want, just all things
Right.
to think about, right? Because it's important. Like these are the things that people are going to be wondering about when you die. And if you're somebody who wants to do things differently, it's really important to put the work in ahead of time. But yeah, I feel like I was gonna. Oh, then to your point too, there's another concept that Betty and I spoke about, which is called your death party. So when so a lot of times when I started thinking about this concept and I started working with Betty on her plan for her funeral and what she wanted to have done, one of the ideas that came to mind was that when something, during these ceremonial markers, these rituals that we have, we've got all these different institutional sort of bits to go along with them that can be supportive. So for instance, when you are at a wedding, when you're getting married, you typically have a wedding party. These are people that are with you from like the moment you get engaged to when you have it, to help support you, to help make things, get things done that need to get done, to help kind of run interference for you when needed. And I'm like, we should have that when we die too. So like, yeah, this concept of like having a death party. So a group of people that you talk to about this stuff with ahead of time, and you're sharing these documents and like you're backing each other up. And it can be one person, and we talk about that. But it's really nice when there's multiple people that can be there, and like everybody gets to take a role, and you can be like reciprocally supportive and all that stuff, because there's so much that happens. And especially if your death, if you have if you kind of spend a long time dying, there's just a lot of support that's needed, and we just haven't found the cultural ways yet to like really make that happen.
Yeah, having the support, it's almost like like a wedding planner, but a death planner, and then having a team,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
everybody can get stuff done that care about the person,
Yeah.
that actually, man. Still, I mean, I want to talk about it without emotion, but it's so hard. It's
Mhm.
so hard to think about, because immediately my brain goes to, well, who's in that? And I'm like, oh God. And then I'm like, well, then they're dealing with my death and blah. And
Yeah.
there's so much that you have to sort of work through, and then like
Mhm.
almost like numb yourself to,
Mhm.
like, it will be okay. Death is okay. Death is a natural part. And that's, to avoid it is causing more problems. So just suck it up, deal with it, come to grips with it, and then figure out what you want.
Yeah. And it's a process. I think anybody who
Oh
thinks
my
they can
gosh.
do this and just have all the answers is hopefully incorrect, myself included. I mean, I wrote this book from my perspective and, Betty's perspective and everything, but it's like I'm still learning so much. Like I'm a doula, but when my dad died, I was still like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I'm having a similar issue right now with my mom, who's not doing well. It's a complicated thing, but the moment you start thinking about it, you're solving, if you want to say it's a problem, you're solving the problem. It's like,
You're working on it.
yeah, it's like you're training your body. You're training your body, you're training your mind,
Yes.
you're training your emotions. And it's a process. And like no one's gonna read this and be able to do everything immediately, or like, it's a way of really changing our perspective, a core belief that we have, or a set of core beliefs that we have about death, and like what's appropriate and what's not, and like how we can be supported or support other people through this, which we haven't been given very good examples for. So it's really an exercise in growth and expansion, and it can be really painful, and it can also take a long time. But when you start embarking on the journey, it's like you're really doing something special, I think.
And I also think that knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really appreciate, and Casey does too, because she just commented, I really want to say thank you for including the information on costs and the different breakdowns included in the book as well. I had no idea about a lot of that, and it was very eye-opening. Much appreciated info, as well as with all the stress surrounding a funeral and death, any ways to help with costs. Thank you, because that part to me was incredibly like the knowledge is power, right? And so there's this huge mass of information that has to do with funerals that I don't want to look at or touch
Yeah.
until I have to.
Yeah.
But having the breakdown, getting in there before you're emotionally involved, and getting a floor plan so that you can get comfortable for when you need to do this, I think is hugely important. You are giving people maps and information, and
Yeah.
the breakdown.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the reality of it is, if you're in the United States, it's like I think it's whether you are cremated or whether you are buried. The average like full, I forget what the term is that they use in the funeral industry, but like the full funeral experience is like on average around $8,000, right? So that's a huge amount of money. Like who has $8,000 lying around if you haven't already like, budgeted for that in advance?
Right.
But then the other thing that happens too, it's like and I talk about this in the section on funerals, but like, unfortunately, the funeral industry is very predatory, and there's a lot of misinformation about the cost of things and what needs to be done. For instance, embalming, which is like is very damaging to the environment, and a lot of people insist that you're embalmed before you're cremated, which doesn't make any sense, or tell you have to be. You legally, most places don't have to be, and that can be like probably thousands of dollars off the bill at the end of the day. And you don't, and you don't have to have anything traditional. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's funeral. You have so many options, and to know that ahead of time is empowering. And then it's also, if you leave these decisions to your friends or family, it just becomes like like you were referencing earlier, it can become such an emotional burden and an operational burden, in addition to the grief that they're experiencing. Because it's like, where do you get the money from? What would they want when this happens? And you go to like a funeral, a funeral agency or a funeral business. They're going to try to upsell you on everything, and you're going to think, well, I should do that because they probably would have wanted it and I love them, so why wouldn't I want to do this? And it just becomes this huge quagmire of paying. Yeah. And the reality is that more and more Americans are getting into tremendous funeral debt as well. And that's a huge issue, right?
That's nuts. I mean, funeral debt is insane to me, because it shouldn't be this much to be able to do something that's a natural part of life.
Yeah.
And predatory is a good description of it, because I feel like they upsell you. They're taking advantage of people feeling like they just want to do the right thing. They just want to get, God forbid they have any sort of feelings that they owe this person something, because then they're going to pay it to the funeral home.
Yeah.
In money, as opposed to like, actually working through their stuff. Michelle says, my dad passed in May last year. I'm sorry, Michelle. Had nothing set before passing. My brother and sister and I had to do all the plans. There is a lot that comes with it, including their property and what needs to happen. It's very stressful, and you're figuring it out on the fly. Yeah. And you and I both know that when you figure shit out on the fly, you don't have enough information to make the best decisions.
No, not at all. I'm sorry for your loss. And that's why one of the last chapters in the book specifically is about estate planning. And that is a very large field of like study, and it depends on where you're located, where they're located. When my dad died,
how much is involved, how many people are involved.
I had such a hard time, because when my dad died, he inherited a house from my grandparents when they passed, and he hadn't worked in a long time, and he just blew all the money he had. The house was like, literally, it's a long story. The police came to take him out, and they were like, this house needs to be condemned. So I'm left with my person who's an heir, and I'm left with like, what the hell am I? He reverse mortgaged the house too.
Oh my God.
He didn't leave any money or like a description of what he wanted to have happen. And I haven't talked to him. Well, it's been a one-way conversation with him just being an asshole to me for the last 5 years, basically, and me ignoring it. But I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And also, I don't want to be responsible for like the house if like, it needs to be condemned or whatever the hell happens with it.
Right. What the hell happens with that? Who takes care of that? Is that you?
Crazy. Yeah. So I was so fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have a number of friends who are lawyers, who then know lawyers who are estate attorneys. And I had a very, very knowledgeable, compassionate person that I was able to reach out with, that helped me kind of figure out what needed to happen, or what options I had in my situation, in addition to like actually proof the stuff that I had in my chapter, the estate chapter, to make sure I didn't get anything wrong or egregiously wrong, which was really nice of her. But it was like, it is so much to figure out. And again, it's like, there's just so many pitfalls in the process, and there's so many technicalities in the process. And if you don't have that stuff documented, if you don't document that for people, even if you don't have those things sort of laid out as to what you want to have happen to your estate, it can become so messy. I mean, it can cost, certainly, I forget, in Michigan, I think it's like the first $15,000 of the estate you can have, I think, but then what ends up happening, still, and I think debtors can still maybe get this out of that $15,000, but as soon as like any properties, like, you're seen as the person kind of taking care of the property or whatever else is going, the property in generally speaking, debtors are able to contact you for like several months to take any money that they think they're owed by other people. Like all the bills come due. You end up in court and the thing that was happening when my dad died too is she's like, it's COVID. So these things are taking possibly years to even get through probation court. And in the midst of that, I'd have to try to like repair the house or do whatever so it doesn't get condemned. I'm like, this is pure insanity. So yeah, like not having any of that stuff can be a real train wreck. And depending on where you're located too, it's like if you're out of state and the person's in state, you have to fly to that state and take care of everything. It's like possibly hire lawyers, which are a considerable expense. Possibly also argue with family or other people who are heirs about what happens to stuff. So the clearer you could be, even if you have like a deck of Pokemon cards, and that's it. It's like still having that documented somewhere can be really helpful if you end up when you end up dying. You know what I mean? Because it again saves this huge amount of hassle for people, and can also like fulfill the wishes that you have ultimately.
Yeah. I found a napkin that says the Pokemon cards went to Shiva. There's a signature on it. It's legit. So we have a bunch of comments. Amber says that after my stepdad passed and the horrible part of not having anything planned, I prepaid for my cremation.
That's so smart. So smart.
Like, I don't want to do this to anyone else. I want to just make it. Here's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Casey says, I have to mention this too. Thank you so much for your ritual book. Such an empowering read. I cannot say how much I love this book and will continue to keep it in my life. I love how anyone, regardless of their religion, can use it in their personal practice. P.S. I'm sorry if this is off topic. I happen to be here late. I hopped on here late. No, Casey, that's beautiful. And you're referring to The Devil's Tome, which is the first book.
Thank you.
It really is. It's you know what? Sometimes, having the structure to just sit down in a circle and do a ritual without having to worry about the dogma, of any religion or any deities or anything like that, but literally you're just communing with yourself and your space, and you can fully focus. I agree with Casey 100%. I love that. I love the first book.
Thank you.
And Kate says, absolutely. So many people don't have wills and their loved ones have no idea how to navigate probate courts. The grief is stressful enough without having to deal with the courts as well. So anything that we can do, I can only speak to the living. Well, I mean, through my podcast, I assume. I don't know. But they're the only ones that matter right now because they're the ones who can do something about the future.
Yeah.
So ghosts can listen, but you guys, if you fucked it up, I'm sorry, it's too late. But you can make it easier for the people that you are leaving behind. And it's something that plagues me all the time, and I don't do it.
Well, I think that's a really great way to look at it too, because I think if you reframe this from like, if we're able to like mentally and emotionally reframe this from something that's scary and like, am I going to be cursed if I do this? Because I think there's a lot of superstitions that come along with death and like death planning. And there's
right. I brought this on myself. We shouldn't think about these things.
Like there's fear. I know it's like people putting like that they're an organ donor on their driver's license and all the old tales about crazy stuff that'll happen if that goes. So there's a lot
if they see that, they'll just let you die.
Yeah, there's like all this weird stuff that we've got going on with this process. But I think if we can reframe it as something that not only is empowering for us as living people, but also as a lot of us are caretakers or compassionate folks or, want to do things right for other folks, if we can also frame it in our heads as like, this is going to make life easier for everybody else, I think that's like a very powerful tool to help motivate us to do the work. Rita, you want to come up?
Oh.
Yeah, Rita.
We got an animal friend.
Yeah, we have many animals in this house. Rita, I can't tell if she wants to jump up or not. Anyway, she'll just stare at me for a while.
I have 2 dogs and a cat in my room currently, and they're all being very good, amazingly. Okay.
Rita may or may not be the spirit of my dead grandma. So we've yet to decide, but she's named after my grandma. Rita.
Hi, Rita. Yeah. Oh, you're beautiful. Look at your face.
A sweet baby.
Oh, she's a fuzzy, soft kitty.
Yeah. She hasn't gotten her cuddle time in. She was sleeping most of the day today. Weren't you, Rita? Yeah. Anywho.
Oh, I love it when animals make appearances. It makes me so happy. Okay, we have more people. So oh my God, where did I leave off? Last thing we said was Kate's. Malik says Shiva's book was by far the best tool I found to help me process the unexpected passing and ensuing grief of losing my younger sister, minus all the religious bullshit.
Oh, sorry for your loss, but thank you.
And that's it does. It helps you because, for people like us, Christ and heaven and God and shit doesn't really help us with grief because it's not something that we buy into. So it's like, thanks. But having actual, ways to process it as opposed to just put it in God's hands and they're in heaven and they're in a better place now, which again, for us, kind of empty. And Jean says, possibly argue with family? Try definitely. Yeah. My family was the kind that when someone died, they would rush in and get the stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think a lot of people's families are like that.
Yeah. They'd be like, did you get her bracelet? Did you get, and you're like, oh Christ, people. Yeah. I've never heard of a death that didn't involve family fights. And they don't always have to, but most of them do. I agree.
Well,
Nick's, what's that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, it's this highly emotional event, and it's also potentially a very public one. So it's like families exist to self-perpetuate this like myth of themselves. Like it just becomes like a shit show for real.
For real. For those of you who don't know, oh my God, blanking. The Grand Budapest is one of my favorite movies. And the whole thing about the fighting over the will and the constant, back and forth and the gross things that get done in the name of this because of greed after somebody dies, and there's this entitlement. And I think that's where a lot of that fighting comes from, this entitlement. Well, blah, blah, blah. Not only about possessions, but also, well, I knew them better. And so they would have wanted this. Write it down. Then they don't have to fight about it.
Well, that's okay. Do you mind if I just piggyback off that right now? Because you just like unlocked a connection in my mind.
Right. Though, Nick, we'll get back to you, but yeah, go.
Oh, and because it is such an emotionally charged thing, it's like we're kind of trying to prove to ourselves that we're A, doing the right thing, and B, that we're like kind of special, or like there's a connection there. And it's like another way of grief. I think the fighting comes from grief, right? It's like complicated.
Yeah, that is true, because you want to. It's somehow weird that you want to be the person who knew what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nick says, very early in the COVID pandemic, I was working out of state in healthcare and got sick. My Nick is a nurse. My husband wanted me to drive home because he wasn't sure how he would get me home if I died. God damn it, Nick! I should read that before I said it out loud. But like, yeah, it's the logistics. Oh my God, logistics of death is what's terrifying, I think, is what we're saying here. Like the logistics of having to navigate what, oh my God, they died. I will be right there. And then I will then figure out what the fuck to do next.
Yeah.
And so I think your book gives us, again, I'll just be like, all right, I'll be right there, guys. I'm going to bring in the map and then figure it out.
I was hoping it would be like, well, and that specific problem was something that Betty and I spoke about too, because we live in different states. So she actually has another doula that she works with too, that's in the state she's based in. But it's like, once you get down to like transporting bodies between states, the shit gets so complicated. So that was a question for her too, because there was a point in writing the book where she's like, I don't know if I'm going to live through writing the book. So it's like, these are real things that we spoke about. And one of I can't remember how much I wrote about it, or if at all I really got into it in this book, but it's like where you want to die is like important, and having contingency plans. That's another thing. I can't remember how much it actually got into the book, but she and I have talked about having like the sort of grand funeral plan or death plan versus, and also a one that's like slightly more realistic, like in case something unexpected happens, right. Just so that like the basics are covered essentially. But it's huge. Like it's a terrifying question, and it's really awful. And yeah, the logistics of that are just terrible.
I feel like Virgos would be really good at this. I feel like Virgos would attack this and be like, well, here's the things we have to do. I need like a Virgo to help me plan things. Allie is my staff Virgo. So
yeah, there you go.
Allie, help me plan my death thing. And then Christina, let's see. Christina says, "Oh my God, I was a home health aide and I helped an older lady whose husband died coming back from a pre-arrangement." Wow. Like they were doing it.
Wow.
So that, as in like they went to make the plans.
Yeah.
And then, and what you were just saying, like, we don't talk about it because what if we're bringing it on? And they're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes that's where your head goes, right?
Yeah.
This book, My Dad Dying, as I was I was literally starting the chapter on grief, driving back from Salem to Detroit, and I found out he died. And I'm like, oh my God. So the thought does go through your head when you're starting to delve into these topics, but then you're like, no, I knew this was going to happen for a long time with him. I suspected it. So anyways, but it becomes such a difficult thing for sure.
It is. I was recently, filling out my dog's dog licenses things, and you can renew them for 1 year or you can renew them for 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I feel like if I renew them for 3, I'm like jinxing myself and one of them's going to die.
Yeah,
because it's like, it's those little things where you're like, I don't want to bring attention to it. I don't want to do anything that, is then I'm going to be like, well, I triggered that, or I made that happen.
Yeah.
Because we're so powerful.
Right.
We're special, like you were saying. Amber, as a Virgo, all right. Right. All bases are covered, including the will and a trust to keep the house just in case. This is the one who prepaid for the cremation.
Yeah.
Told you, Virgo. What'd I say?
Yeah. Very, very nice job. The trust
well done.
About now too. Like that's a whole thing I don't fully understand, but there's so many ways, there's so many legal things if you have the resources that you can put into place to really protect your wishes. And also I found, and I talk about this in the chapter about estate planning, is there are also free legal resources too. So I mean, even if you don't have the means to get all this stuff arranged to the extent that you might like, getting like a private attorney, you still can get somebody to help walk you through the process wherever you're located, more than likely through.
And that resource is in the book.
It is, yeah.
And it's on what is your website again? Just tell me so I can put it on it.
Yeah, it's mydeathwishes.org. We're like, we got to stick with the death wishes thing.
mydeathwishes.org.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the new secret code. Do you have a death wish?
And then
you have to answer with the thing.
I swear to God, I wanted to get a billboard somewhere like random and just like put it there, but it got too cost prohibitive. I'm like, I tried to do a little bit of viral marketing and put stickers places too, but it was a good idea, poorly executed, but I love that idea.
There's so many good ideas out there. The difference is executing them.
It is.
Again, I need more Virgos in my life. I have ideas. I need facilitators. I need people.
I need help. Will somebody help me, please?
Yeah, I've put that out many times. I just need help with this. Amy Blackthorn just says, "Aw." Hi, Amy. It's good to see you, baby.
Hello.
And Christina, she followed up. So this is the accident on the way back from pre-arrangement. They paid for it, and we're in an accident on the way back, and it was over 20 years ago. So how crazy!
That's so crazy.
Amy volunteers as Virgo tribute.
Amazing.
He's my Katniss. Yeah, it's hard because it's, there's I have focus problems. I have, executive function problems. And so there's one thing from like having a great idea to then getting it all the way to the end, where it's actually a thing that you produce and put out in the world, including my death plan, where it's like, I want to do this, but
yeah. I don't know. I think maybe I'll like eventually when I start like doing more one-on-one stuff, maybe that's like a service I'll offer, or that's something somebody could offer. I don't know. Like death doulas can do that for you for sure. That's the thing too. So if people aren't familiar with death doulas, they're folks who get trained. It's an unregulated field right now. So for instance, I got my death doula certification through the University of Vermont through an online program back during COVID. But there is no set curriculum, or it's not like an RN or something like that where things are verified by the state. So there's all sorts of characters that are death doulas, obviously from different perspectives and that do different things. But these are people, I think this is a relatively new field. that kind of exists as the same way birth doulas do, but at the time of death, or around death, which makes a lot of sense to me. So they can take on various roles, including but not limited to, helping you with this sort of death plan. They can, if you become sick and are near dying, they can come and be at your bedside. They can help arrange any sort of like personal affairs. They can help support the family as needed. They can hold vigils. You go shopping, all sorts of different sort of things that they can do for you to help ease the burden of going through this alone. And so, there's probably someone out there that can like hold a hand through it. But yeah, I think it really is something that's doing this sort of death planning is like something that's really challenging to do alone. I feel like you almost do need a team of people or like someone to go through, a partner to go through with this process, because it's just a lot, It's a lot.
Have you seen The Wedding Planner? little
Have
little J-Lo movie.
It's been years, but yes. I think it was on HBO and I considered watching it recently again.
It's all I keep thinking about when we're talking about this is a death planner, right? Like somebody who is there with like, they've got like their tissues and the bobby pins and the things and the
It's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, it can definitely be that. And I think
extra corpse makeup for when people kiss the
exactly. Yeah. They're ready with it all. Yeah. I mean, dressing the body, doing all sorts of things, like burning the right incense. I mean, it's definitely a field if you're interested in death and helping people. I think this is a field that like there's a lot of potential. I think it's going to be one of the biggest growing fields, honestly. I think death care is going to be one of the biggest growing sort of economies and fields in anything that we've got going on, especially in the States, because there just isn't support otherwise for it. And I'm hopeful that like maybe it's a service that insurance starts paying for, or that can be freely available to people. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of development in the next couple of years. And if that's something that interests you, definitely check out a death doula program, research what ones resonate most with you, because that's a service that I think a lot of people need, and people, especially people from our community, could be, I think, really, really great at,
I agree. I think that there's a lot of people that are very compassionate. I know a lot of people personally who are really super, super into death. They, as in like they are into easing people who are dying, like doing hospice care, doing hospice death doula work, and being there for the family and offering options. And the more educated they are on the planning, I think even better, because helping navigate all that stuff beforehand if possible. So have you heard of, so talking about interesting ways that you can decide what to do with your body after you have passed, have you heard of the Sumum religion in Utah?
I don't think so. Wait, was this the one where they found the body, the corpse?
Well,
that was like on the road or something, where they had like kind of pseudo preserved it for a number of
I think that's another roadside attraction by Tim Robbins. Is it Tom Robbins? Wait, which is it? Tom Robbins? Yeah, I think that's a book about Jesus being. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that really happened. That when we were writing the book, she's like, Betty was like, "Did you hear about this?" And there was like a cult that got discovered with a body in a car. I don't know. It's a long story, but anyways. Sorry for.
So no, that's okay. They're not necessarily a cult. They're actually a. The best way I can kind of describe it is there are people who tend to lean towards ancient Sumerian and Egyptian culture that will take on your body after you die. If you make the preparations, you can be mummified.
Oh, very nice.
The founder of this religion, of this temple, his body is actually mummified. His sarcophagus is in the building that you can see. And so, but if you really want an alternate way, you can contact them and get like before you die, so that when you pass away, the people that are there to take care of your stuff know to make arrangements with them that they will actually have your body sent there to Utah, where they will prepare it and do all the things. They also do pets.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And it's been probably about 8-10 years since I've looked into it, but every time I've looked back, it's still been a real thing. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there seem to be like a growing number of ways of, I don't know, use disposing of the body, but like there's so many options for what you can have done after you die. That's a big part of the funeral section of the book too. Is like, and a death duel actually said recently that it's the most comprehensive list that they've ever seen in a book. So I spent a lot of
That's
time
awesome.
reading it, but yeah, I mean, I'm really interested. We actually might do this with my cat who passed recently. We had her cremated, but you can tattoo with ashes. Which that's kind of controversial, but that's a thing that can happen. You can oh man, you can dissolve your body in acid. You can have it, use it as fertilizer for various plants or trees or whatever.
You can become like a mushroom patch. Yeah.
Mushroom patch. You can blast it off into space if you want. I mean, you could put it at the bottom of the ocean in like a sort of a reef stable structure to like help reefs grow. I don't know. You can donate to science.
Oh my God. Okay. I heard the craziest fucking podcast the other day. I'm a listener of My Favorite Murder. I like it a lot. And sometimes they will have guest people on there who do other podcasts. And so they had this woman on who does a podcast called The Opportunist, where they talk about people who take advantage of situations that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So she talks about this woman who trains dogs for like body retrieval and like search and rescue type of stuff. I'm just going to ruin this for you guys. If you don't want to hear about this, just forward for like 3 minutes because but it's this she talks about this woman who has this star dog who can find dead remains anywhere, and she's like, she's really pumped this up. There's been articles about her. She's worked with dozens of cases. Turns out she was dropping evidence out of her fucking pant leg so that the dog would find it. And then they'd be like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, we found 3 bone fragments at a crime where we expected to find this victim, but these 3 bone fragments they're not the same person.
Whoa.
And did we find a serial killer dumping ground? You know what I mean? Like, and they're, off on this stuff, but they figured out that she was a fake. And then the big question was, where the hell is she getting this stuff? Like, she's just got she left a toe at one place and she's got all these things. Turns out, to train these dogs, you need human remains. One of the ways you get human remains is by people who have donated their bodies to science. And so she's just got like all these fucking like buckets of fucking human remains in her place. And she's just like tucking them in her cuff. And then like she'll go down to like tie her shoe and like let it go. And then their dog, I found one.
Jeez.
It was nuts. It's one of the latest My Favorite Murder episodes where they talk about it. And it's crazy, but it made me realize that when you're donating your body to science, it could literally be for anything. It could be to train, search and rescue dogs.
Well, speaking of ethical, you were talking earlier about ethical taxidermy and that sort of thing. So this brings me to this is something that happened in Detroit maybe like 5 years ago, but I believe it was somebody who was working for the medical school at the University of Michigan and who was in charge of like accepting bodies. He actually, hopefully this is a rare occurrence of something that happens, but he was accepting specimens for the medical program and he was actually taking a number of them and like selling them on the black market. So he had a warehouse that was in Detroit and the police found it. And apparently it was like the most disgusting thing you can imagine. But yeah, he was taking bodies from the university and selling parts of them to whomever, so that can be a huge thing with human body, I guess. But hopefully I think that's a rare occurrence, when you donate your body to science or whatever, but yeah, you can. I mean, you can. I spoke to somebody yesterday who has arranged it so that their body is donated to a forensics lab or something like that, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of different, things you can do and ways that it can be used for sure.
Yeah, and ways that I hadn't even thought about. Like, but yeah, so what we were talking about, the ethical stuff, the problem is creating a supply, right? For creating a demand where then people are going to be forced to fill that supply. I mean, we saw it in Victorian times when, they were, paying people to bring in cadavers so that medical students could work on them. And then suddenly there's not enough cadavers, but there's money available.
Right.
And you can get cadavers if you want to work a little harder. which, I think goes against the whole point of, doing medicine to help save people. We're now killing people so that we can help save people. Yeah, it's fucked. But yeah, creating that demand is something that I'm trying not to do, because I don't want people to bring me that shit that makes me hurt in my stomach.
I think it's awesome you had that conversation about it, because I think it's something that people don't address very often, and it's really cool that you're like open to having those conversations and the reflection, right, and the learning.
Yeah. I am a person who makes mistakes. Here's one of them. Hey, everybody. Because I felt bad that I got called out on this thing, because they were right. Like, as soon as I saw the comment, I was like, oh my God, they're 100% right. And also, we need to take down this post because it says it's fucking ethical, and it's not in my eyes. But in some people's it is. Depends on
Right.
on the definition. But I think it's important also to put out that beacon that that's not what WitchLab is, and I don't want it to be that. And
absolutely,
leave that stuff at home. Somebody was actually literally poisoning field mice.
Oh my God.
Going into their own goddamn territory. Not the person I bought from, but the person who approached me to buy from them. And I was like, why does it say field mouse on the top of this? And they were like, well, I just put traps in the field. I'm like, fuck no. I don't want that. I don't want things. Don't kill things. Then bring them to me. Do not kill things and bring them to me ever. Anyway, just so everybody knows that. Just hear that loud and clear. We have a couple of comments. I don't know if I read Christina's about being a Virgo, but I'm going to read it again. I'm a Virgo, definitely getting the book. Estate planning and prearrangement is on my list. I met with a funeral home after my uncle passed. See, yeah, it's like that lesson. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this, or I don't want my family to deal with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Amber says, I have been told that being a Virgo, we are the devil in the details. Well, we do love devils, and we love details.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Let's see. Peggy says, hey, Tiffany, I'm certified in design thinking, which takes a concept from conception to execution.
Oh,
really?
Cool.
That's fucking interesting, Peggy. Peggy is one of my good friends, and she's, been one of my students of WitchLab since it was in my basement. So like, we've been friends for a long time, and I had no idea that you do that.
That's awesome.
We need to talk, friend. You need to come by anyway, because I want to see your new ring. All right. Oh, and Amber says, since I can't be a mortician, this might be my next career move. Dude, after death planning, like, just
it's going to be huge. I'm telling you right now, like, it's going to be, I'm sure it'll be well paying, and I'm sure
your textbook. Like, you should start making this a textbook. So this is the Death Planner's Handbook is actually the second edition of this.
Well, you know what I've actually thought about doing? Okay, so two things. I'm thinking, and I actually started working on this during the book when I was writing the book, but like, things just got really wild in my personal life in the last year. But I am working on like a companion actual, like a physical book route that'll actually walk you through and have you fill out things in an easily accessible way. And then also possibly also figure out a way to direct people to like some sort of like either an online template that they can fill out on their computers and save, or I think the legal ramifications of keeping an online database would be too complex for me to handle where I am at now in my business world. But I want, there need to be like resources like that for folks. And
even if it's just for them, like they just download it and this is the worksheet just so they have it, I think is fantastic.
And the other thing I thought about this book, because like that's the biggest, I think this one's been a little bit slower going, I think, than the Devil's Tome, just because like of the concept of it and the fact that it's so, it's a very heavy book to read.
It's heavy.
But I've been thinking about releasing a version of this. Betty and I have talked about releasing a version of this that's not explicitly satanic, where we could still have like the same ideas and a lot of the same content, but then
so it's accessible to more people.
More accessible, because we put so much work into this that we want it to be accessible to as many people as possible, and we don't want it to be, obviously there's a certain aesthetic. And when I felt absolutely called to write this book specifically for my community, because I knew that this was something that needed to be explored. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people who've read the book who aren't Satanists, just like the Devil's Tome, they're like, oh, I can definitely use this. This is great. And I've gotten so much positive feedback like that from death duels and people in the death industry that I'm like, yeah, I've got to publish this in a way that it's more accessible too, just so I can get the information out there. Because I have to tell you, the research I had to do to write this book, and the amount of confusing information there is out there is just so overwhelming. So yeah, I'd love for this to be, accessible to many people as possible.
I appreciate you sifting through all of that information and bringing to us a comprehensive that you've like fact checked with lawyers and all the people in your community, everybody that you've dealt with, and brought us this. So I thank you.
Oh, thank you for letting me talk about this. Like,
Yes.
I definitely took a break from talking about the book for a while because of, like, again, I was dealing with a lot, but I really want to get the word out, and I really want all of us in our communities to have these sort of conversations and make it more commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, going back to some of the ideas I talked about at the beginning of our chat, like, I do think that this sort of work empowers you so much as a person, and really like adds a depth to your life that is hard to reach when you are not comfortable with how, accessing these parts of yourself that we're taught to be afraid of, or like these aspects of life that we're taught to fear.
I almost feel like it adds a level of freedom.
Absolutely.
A freedom of thought, a freedom of to pull off a burden you didn't even know you had on you.
Yeah. And the way I'm personally, like, after my dad died, and I've got some other issues with my family now, my mom, I'm just like, I've planned like several trips this year. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, a lot of the fears that I held around accomplishing things or doing certain things, or the imposter syndrome, a lot of that is slowly melting away, because I'm like, you know what? I could die tomorrow. And that's what I felt like writing this book specifically, because it was in the midst of COVID. And I'm like, you know what?
Literally could.
Let's fucking do this.
I could go to the grocery store and get wiped out because I touched something and I didn't wipe it down.
Yeah, it's like, let's live for today, and like, let's embrace the fact that we're going to die, and just live the best life we can, and have as much fun as we can, and do the things that make us feel accomplished and loved and all those things.
The shaking off of the burden that we don't even realize we have, and then feeling the joy of kind of understanding ourselves more, I think is a huge part of this whole journey that the Devil's Death leads you on. It's it can literally be life-changing as you're thinking about your death. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just said it has been for me. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. That's clear. I remember talking to you when we talked about the Devil's Tome. I think we actually talked about the Devil's Deck was the last time you were on. Have you been on 2 or 3 times?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I thought 1 or 2, but I might be wrong about that, because we did touch on the Devil's Death a little bit, I think, in our last convo, but not.
We did.
Working on a little, it was yet to be released, I think.
Yeah, because we definitely discussed it last time. But yeah, it was even then it was just like eye-opening and like, oh, I need to get on that stuff.
Real shadow work, it's the shadow work.
The shadow we say it twice because it's that important. The shadow work. So Christina says, I just found out you can make some of your ashes into a vinyl record of your choice, meaning you can choose whatever album you want, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's
what
awesome.
album would you choose?
That's the question, right? Jeez.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. It just got so much harder. Christina, why? Why did you do this to us? Jaws soundtrack. It's the Jaws soundtrack 100%.
They'll play it at your funeral or your party or whatever. It'll be perfect. Like, maybe there's a whole movie viewing. You know what I mean? That's just it. It's just Jaws. And I don't know.
I want, oh man, something to pop up out of the coffin. I
just you can make it happen, right? Like, you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
I literally do. I can make my death party anything I want. I will, and they have to experience it. If they love me, they'll be there. This is what she wanted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, put on your shark costumes. We're getting ready to do the thing.
It'd be amazing. Nick says, I'm super interested in being buried under a tree. There is an Italian company that was doing this called Capsula Mundi. I remember that. It was like a little cylinder, right?
It's something, but yeah, like, I've seen those. Those look really cool. Yeah.
Kate says, what are the chances that having ethically sourced bones would come full circle. Actually, when I was writing my intro for this, I was like, we're talking about death.
Yeah, we are.
In all aspects. But that's absolutely true. Being donated to science is unfortunately rife with fraud and criminal aspects. And literally, they're going to use your bones to like plant evidence. That's crazy. And there's news reports of people just selling parts on the black market. What was it? The dark web?
Oh yeah, the dark web.
Used for unsavory reasons. Yeah. The dark web.
Yeah.
You can go on the dark web.
Yeah.
Type O negative. October.
Oh, nice. For the album. Yeah.
Oh, good job. I don't actually know what that is. Okay, thank you for saving me. I'm like, is that a paint color? What are we talking? Sorry, TikTok told me I don't know. Pop goes the weasel.
That's good. And then will you get some hydraulics in the coffin to like?
Well, Pop goes the weasel and the weasel goes Pop. Who is that?
Oh, I thought you meant the nursery. Like
the weasel. Pop goes the weasel. Someone tell me who that is. It's third base, isn't it? Yeah.
No.
I think so. Anyway.
I was thinking like the box where the thing pops up at the end, and I was like, that'd be perfect too for a few.
Oh, like a
dun, 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 yeah, coffin at the end of it and get hurled.
What's that called? Oh, Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Amber says I've thought about it. I thought about it as a former life insurance agent, right? So you probably helped them. You probably knew a lot about estate planning already, being that too, because they're sort of tied in.
Yeah, definitely.
Things you need to do. Jason says October Rust is a goddamn classic, and yes, it is third base. Thank you. Our music expert has finally shown up. Appreciate that. Jason, what album would you have your ashes pressed into? Hard question. I want to hear. Shiva, do you have yours yet?
Oh, my album? Probably my own album. That's the next project.
That's the next thing we're going to talk about. What a great segue. Yeah. Okay, so while you guys are thinking about what albums you would have your ashes pressed into, we're going to talk about Shiva's whole new thing. That
bring it over real quick. I've got like it's not fully. I've got like a sample of what it's going to look like, which I'm excited about.
All right, and Jason says seventh son of a seventh son, Iron Maiden. That's not a big surprise. We all know you love Iron Maiden. That's good. That's a good answer. Every Day is Halloween, Ministry.
Nice.
All right, so what were you getting for us?
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna. So this is I'm pressing 6 records. This is just the back's not going to be quite like this, but similar. I'm getting another sample made, but yeah, it's all going to be gold foiled like the Devil's Tome. So the idea with this project, this is the next project I'm working on. It's a record. Basically, there's going to be 3 records that I'm making that are specifically, that just like the Devil's Deck, specifically go with the Devil's Tome. So the first record is going to be it's going to be called Devotion, and it's going to be about it's going to connect with all the rituals in the book about desire and loss and love. So it's going to have 6 songs on it, and it's going to be digital, but then there's also going to be the 666 pressed album version that's going to be limited edition. I'm super excited about it. So initially I thought I was going to make 1 record to go and kind of be a pair with the Devil's Tome, but then I realized physical records only hold like 35 minutes of music. So I'm like, oh shit. And all my songs are long because it's ritual music. So I'm like, well, I really got to par that one down. So I decided, well, I'll just make 3 records. And so that's what I just
I'm going to par it down by making 3 records.
This is how my brain works.
Like my friend, that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I got a plan. I've got a 6-year plan. So, but no, I'm working on this record. So I sent it. It's getting pressed by Third Man too, which I'm really stoked about.
Wait, what?
I'm releasing it independently, but I'm getting it pressed in Detroit, which I was really happy to be able to do. So it's going to be gold. So it's specially pressed gold, and then it's going to come with the gold foil limited edition album cover. And yeah, I think I'm going to release it. Record pressing takes so long. I've learned so much about it. I just jump into these things without understanding how to do any of it, and I just read and I talk to people, and
I know. We just go, just dive.
So so I think it'll be available in July probably, but yeah, I'm taking pre-orders for that now. I also just got this in the mail, which is another sample. So, oh, and before I get onto this, sorry, my like ADHD brain's a little scattered at this point.
We
But
understand. It's okay.
so the idea with this is that it again pairs with the Devil's Tome, and it has 6 songs that are each connected to one of the rituals in the book. This album specifically with love, self-love, desire, and loss. But the reason I decided to do this, and I decided to do this right when I first started writing the book, is because music has been so important to me as a ritual practitioner. It's been one of those elements that has really helped me get into the moment, the right headspace, to be emotionally open. So that's why I decided to put these records out. And yeah, after several years of working on stuff on and off, like it's finally happening. So Lucian Greaves, the co-founder of the Satanic Temples, also contributed to a couple songs on the record. And then I've got
singing? Is he singing?
No, he does sing. Yeah, he's on Satanic Planet's record. So
Okay.
I also collaborated with him on that one. So he does sing, and
So, yeah, I'm sorry. What do you do musically now? Do you sing? Do you play?
I do everything. So I composed all the songs on this, and then I also sing. Singing's like the thing that I've done since I was a kid, but I learned how to play guitar when I was like 10, and I played piano and synthesizer and pretty much anything. Like again, I just throw myself into whatever.
Damn, that's amazing.
So I don't know. This is actually the thing I've been most excited about releasing, just because it aligns so much with my personal passion. And I've never taken music seriously really until now. And luckily, I've built a life where I'm able to do this sort of thing. So I'm super stoked about it. But I did a campaign for it in the fall, and then I still have the remaining records pre-sale on my website. And part of what I'm doing for the pre-sale too is I've created all these different packages that you can get along with the record if you want. So I created this. This is like, I've been wanting to do a gilded journal for like a long time. So this is called Devotion. It's going to be this gilded hardcover journal with all the pages gilded. It's 300 pages.
Lined or unlined?
Unlined.
We just need to know. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I've debated going both ways, but I figured unlined gives you the opportunity to, write if you want, but then also draw, which is like a big thing for me. So the idea too is that this will go along with the Devil's Tome, and this will also go along with the record. So as you're working through rituals and you want to take notes or draw or whatever your ritual journey is, I wanted to make like a tool that was really beautiful and cool for people to use. So that just came in, which I'm stoked about, and there is a package with that in it. So yeah, I'm like super excited about it, like super duper excited.
So okay, real quick, where can people get it?
Yeah, so if you go on, it's www.serpentina.com. That's my my boutique, my website where I sell everything. So there's a section in there for, I think I have to remember it's either books and music or just music, and you can just pick it up right there.
So real quick, spelling SERPENTINAE. AE. Okay, that's what I wasn't sure about. Okay, sweet. There you go, peoples.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what kind of music is it?
Oh man, see, that's the thing. The funny thing is I released the pre-order campaign without releasing anything, and surprisingly people still went for it.
I mean, I'm fucking interested, but I'm also curious.
No, it's I would say like I'll just tell you what some of my influences are, and that might give you some of an idea. So like I've been listening to like a lot of Dead Can Dance and Cocteau Twins, and it's also like various industrial music, and I've been listening to a lot of Lingua Ignota. It's kind of like beautiful sort of choral arrangements and some of it for a couple of songs, but like very dark and sad and satanic. And so we've got like one song that I hope people are going to like go to the club and dance to, and like possibly also do one of the rituals and masturbate to. So that's cool. And then I've got like music. We did, Lucian and I worked on a track for the Black Mass that I think is going to be really good. And one of the cool things too that I offered for some of the early supporters is that they could contribute to the record. So I've got a bunch of people that that sent me samples of themselves, like talking about desires and also doing like some Hail Satans, and that's been incorporated into the record. So yeah, it starts out kind of slow and sort of I don't know, just kind of like massive and epic with it's very layered and very sonic. And then it also has elements of things that are a little bit more standard in terms of songs, but I can't really compare it to anything. I don't know, I feel like everybody says that, but I'm going to be putting out some clips soon. And then I think the first single will probably release like in the spring. So it's all coming around slowly but surely.
I want one. And I would like to sell them too. I don't know if you're doing wholesale for those
Oh, yeah,
ones.
I definitely will. Yeah, I'll send you a copy when it comes out, and, I'd love for you to have it in the shop. That would be an honor for sure. I'm
I
so
actually have a record player. I
Oh, yeah. I'm so grateful for your support on everything, so, too, I have to say. So, yeah, I think it'll be really cool. So
I'm very excited. when I when I first heard that you were doing the music thing, I was like, oh man, good luck getting her to talk about the last book. But you did so good. We talked so much about the book. I'm really proud of us.
we
Like
did
you,
me too, me too. My brain's always in 5 places at once, and I've always got like, I'm already working on the next book, so I'm, like, always constantly, moving forward, but, I spend so much time on this stuff that I can still talk about it forever, so I love
because
it.
your heart's still in it, regardless of whether it's your main focus right now.
Yeah, and these conversations are, like, my favorite, absolutely. Like, I love our chats. They're so good.
Yay, me too. Me too. Uh, okay, so we've got people who have
Mhm.
things to say.
Yes.
The last thing we said was that Amber's one was every day is Halloween, this
Yeah.
ministry. Alchemista, what do you think makes a good satanic ritual in your opinion? I'm also a Virgo, by the way, and it is said that Azazel is our insignia demon according to Kabbalah, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good Virgo question too. I have to my answer is an Aries or whatever, or in my moon in Sagittarius is that a good satanic ritual is one that is moving and creates change in yourself. So one of the things that I suggest
Perfect
in
answer.
both
That's
books is basically despite the fact that I have rituals that I created in both books, I really encourage people to create their own rituals. And there's some like preliminary evidence through research that people who are studying ritual are finding that ritual that is created by the individual is more powerful. It has better effects than ritual that is, rote essentially. So I truly do believe that it makes a big difference. And I think that as a Satanist too, to me, having rituals that are rote that can't be, that you're not supposed to change, that have to be done a certain way is very anti, like not satanic to me. And that was kind of like the thesis with their book too. It's like you don't have to do the devil's death is like you don't have to do any rituals death. None of it has to look like anybody else. It's all about you and like what you want, right? So that's my answer for the satanic ritual. It's a ritual that can like accomplish what you want to have accomplish. You know, that's essentially it. And that ideally probably you make yourself.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Rose, for those of you who are following along at home, Rose is Kate's mother. Kate, who was on here earlier that we talked about, they wrote obituaries every year.
Yeah.
This is Rose, who owns the Mystic Rose, and we love her so much. Michael's, which is her husband, would have been Abba Gold.
Nice.
To press the, yeah,
Nice.
I believe that's her husband. God, I hope I'm right about that. I think so. Yeah. And Nick says, where can I find this when it's available? Which you said on the Serpentina, which we.
Yeah. You put
Yeah.
the link. Thank you for
So,
that.
yeah. Yeah, it's important that people can find your stuff. It's important that they have a direct link to you. I mean, they can go through me. That'd be great. I mean, you can come in and get the whole WitchLab experience while you pick up your book or your deck or your record. But and also your new pins
Oh,
and
and the
altar cloths.
right, you're bringing those in too. I'm so excited about it.
I'm excited about those too. And okay, so I'm gonna pull up something really quick because you sent me
Yeah.
when you sent me the pictures of them. And I don't know if you know that this happened, but when you sent me the pictures of them, you also sent pictures of us. And I don't know if you sent them or if they just came through because
Weird.
they're like in the history. But I'm gonna show real quick. Where's my share screen thing? One of these things is that I don't know. I never share screen, so I never know.
I'm so bad at
I'll figure it out. It's
that.
where is it? I know it's a thing on here. Oh, present. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. This is the pictures that we took.
In Ohio?
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, wow.
It just showed up, and I'm like, oh my god.
Love it. I definitely didn't consciously do. I don't know how that would even show up, but I love that it did.
Me too. I'm gonna find. Oh, it's a tab. Facebook. Okay. Yeah. Look. Okay, guys, look at this. This is Shiva and I.
Oh my God.
You see that?
Oh yeah.
We were playing with a violet wand at my friend Matt's house. And then this is you and me and Doug, and then it's you and me again.
Just hanging out.
Oh my God. Look at we're such babies. Wait, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Let's remove that. Okay. Yeah, so they just came through when where do I make this stop?
Yeah, maybe it's like a media thing within Facebook or something like that. That's so weird. Maybe
yeah, because I think it was just like in our history of Facebook messages from forever ago. But I was looking at the pins and the altar clause you sent, and it was just like, there's more pictures. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. So I had talked you and Doug into coming to my friend Matt's house because he had an original. He had like a first edition translation of Eliphas Levy's Transcendental Magic that had the original Baphomet etching in it.
I think I still have pictures of that somewhere too on my computer, honestly. It was very cool.
And it was great because then we just went and sat around in like overstuffed leather chairs and drank whiskey and talked about magic.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. It was a good time.
So okay. Oh, Casey has questions. Ears perk up. Next book.
Oh.
Any hints on what we can look forward to in the future in print? Thank you, Casey. I wanted to write that down as a question and I forgot. So I appreciate you being here.
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized, okay, so it was kind of too late for me to do this now for more death work. So I realized that what I really have to do is like think in terms of 2 to 3 year cycles with one topic, which I should have done with death, but didn't because I haven't been able to talk about it as much as I want, but I'm going to make up for that in the next couple months. But I think in the future, what I really want to do is release a lot of work that's attached, which I already have done with the Devil's Tome.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because you're like bolstering the experience.
Yeah, that's what I love. Like, I love, like, I made the deck for the Devil's Tome and then that book and now music for it. So now that I've got this, which is this record's like devotion. So Betty and I got in a call. So I had this idea about I think initially I was thinking next year I would do like a tarot deck, which takes way too much time for me right now. Yeah. So we'll talk about that in 5 years. But I was like, all right, I'm like, all right, so I've got this record that's coming out and it's on the concept of like love, devotion, remembrance, all these things. So I'm like, how can I keep essentially, like, because I'm terrible at marketing, I'm like, how can I just keep talking about all the same things and be in the same mindset while I'm, in the next 2 or 3 years with this work? So Betty and I had a conversation. It just came to me like last month, but I'm like, you know what? I just need to write another book, but it's going to be specifically around love, desire, like heartbreak, all this stuff. So like rituals, but also like the science of it all and like attachment theory and
oh my God,
relationships essentially from a satanic perspective, which basically means that there aren't any rules. It's all about, what I want to do is expose people to like the different options that they have and talk about, I might even get different Satanists to come in the book and talk about like some of their wisdom and like love and all these other topics. But so it'll be like a part ritual book. And then it'll also be like part of just like the science and like personal stories and wisdom on all these things. So, I thought that I was like, that's actually, I mean, my real satanic journey that's been like the biggest muse, I would say, of my journey is this concept of love. And the biggest sort of like core of that is this development of self-love, which I had such a hard time doing and I'm still working on now. So I'm like, and also I think because like Anton LaVey and like if you look at Church of Satan and some of the other sort of branches, it can be kind of like aggressive, like love's not something that hate's talked about a lot, love's not. And I'm like, well, this value I feel like is very satanic and I want to like delve into more. So when the record will come out and then I'll have the campaign hopefully at the end of the year for like the new book about love and then finish it up and get that out next year. So yeah, about to start the cycle again, which I'm a little scared about. I'm like, well, if the superstitions are true and this book brought me death, and I hope that this new one will just make everything in life really lovely and like make me feel like lots of love. So we'll see what happens.
Right? Based on information we have so far, it should bring you lots of love.
Yeah, lots of love. It'll be great. So,
So love is the basis of all magic. Yes, this is something I've heard many, many times.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's not love being the opposite of fear,
Mm,
and love being that which can, be the fuel for your magic, be the fuel for your intentions. If love is the fuel for your intentions, if love is what you are using to do your magic, from what I understand, it's incredibly powerful. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I use it in my magic and I think about it often, and I'm here to say it works.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what I think too. And you just mentioning that now, such great insight. And also, again, it's like this alchemical thing, right? Like if we think of fear or grief or something as a transformer, I think we can think of love as another sort of transformer that helps, break through these walls that we've put up or that exist and can help, create new worlds, I think.
I think getting past the fear,
Hmm.
breaking past the fear is how we get to the love. That's how we get to the, uh, I'm going to say this because it's all I can think of, the unafraid love.
Yeah.
it's, it's the trust without fear, love without fear, just giving in that loving way, like being open and just letting things flow through you, that fear stops energy from moving through us.
Yeah.
Love helps energy move through us so that we can be a conduit, so that we can then feel the joy and do the things, and I think be much 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 more powerful witches is to focus and channel on love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you were talking about the New Year's, right? Like, what did I do? I just feel like that's been a big theme ever since the years split. Like, I've been in therapy for a while and I've worked with a great therapist. And like, that's just something that keeps coming up. And I think something that I'm really trying to embrace now is like, let's just work through that fear and like have love replace it, and have that become the bigger thing and, not be closed in. So,
I feel like there's big lessons out there. One of them is, what do you want?
mhm.
One of them is fear and love are opposites, and that you have to work through fear, like to not let fear stop you from doing things, and also communication so that expectations don't fuck up your life.
That's literally the thing I was gonna say when you started off with the other two. I was like, yeah, that's the big one, communication. Yeah, I think that's the whole recipe. I mean, or a good part of it, I feel like, And that's what I found in my personal I'm married now, and like that's what I found not only in that relationship, but other personal relationships is that willingness to be vulnerable and to communicate needs. And I grew up, as you can imagine, in an environment where that just wasn't happening at all. And that was you were not allowed to have needs, both religiously and then personally and all that. So it can be, as a Satanist, it's a revelation and a revolution to be able to like understand that healthy relationships can incorporate these things and things get a lot easier. That you don't have to be afraid. You can be on the same page, and you know, it's really exciting.
Fear is something that will creep up and fuck with you, and it's the opposite of shadow work, right? Because it'll fuck with you.
Yeah.
When just to bring it around again to this whole fucking like octopus tentacle ethically sourced thing, like when yeah, just like when it was called out and I was just like, oh, I have so much shame about this thing. That shame is coming from fear.
Yeah.
It's coming from being afraid of being judged, which is fine, judge me, but like also, I'm doing better. But like to just face it head on, to just like I don't know. I think it's important to be free of
Mhm.
the weight of fear and
Yeah.
shame. Both of them. They're fear and shame are really they're
They're
dicks.
like married cousins or something like that. Incestuous, incestuous pair or something. I don't know.
That was really apt. That was really that's good. But yeah, they're terrifying, and they feed off each other, and something that I think if you are going to do shadow work, get better, ascend, find out about yourself, figure out what you want, you have to address these things head on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I found that one of my and this is something new for me too, but something I've kind of toyed with over the years, but something that I really see a need for now. because I have PTSD and I have so much anxiety, and I think I've made a lot of like positive, positive inroads in that in the last year, especially the last couple months. But this idea that like, you know what I'm going to do to like work through these issues is I'm going to actually envision, because I'm already in my mind thinking of what's the worst case scenario, right? Like, what's the I'm like, why
Yeah.
not make a ritual around that, or just like write it out? Because I mean, that really gets you in the place where you're like, okay, well, if that's the worst case scenario, then like, what can I do to circumvent it? Or like, you see your options. And fear is that barrier to the options, and it's like,
Knowledge is power, and
yeah,
exploring your fear, labeling it, figuring it out, breaking it apart,
yeah,
looking at it. What is it?
yeah, yeah,
And then you can work with it. Then you can actually say, oh, okay, no, it's not as fucking terrifying or world ending. Because oh wait, this is the worst that's gonna happen. Okay. Well,
yeah.
having to admit I'm wrong is not that bad.
Well, circling back to like, our conversation earlier too, it's like, well, that's a lot of people's greatest, aside from public speaking, a lot of people's greatest fear is death, right? So it's like, but as we see with this work, it's like once you actually open yourself up to it and you're like, shit, it's going to happen. So like, well, what can I do to protect myself? What can I do to make it better? What can I do so that I don't suffer as much and the people around me don't? Then it's like, wow, I don't need to feel this way anymore. This weight's off me and my world opens up,
Yes. You're lifting one brick at a time off of us. Yeah. So you've lifted the Devil's Tome brick, which was beautiful because that's sort of like a reclaiming of yourself. And now you've gotten this grief off of us. And next you're going to get this like fear of love off of us. No pressure.
Surprised me. I like it. No, but I mean, and just as a side note, because this is where my brain's going right now with the connections, but like the download I'm getting, but like the, like the thing that makes me think about too is with all these projects, there's not one moment, and just to encourage other people who are creative or like, doing their own thing, like we were talking earlier, it's like everything that I've done in my life that has had any sort of long lasting pleasure or like accomplishment I've always had a very acute sense of fear with it. And like, if I had listened to that, I would not have done any of this stuff. And even just putting out this last book or doing the record, I mean, it never leaves me. But you know what? Through ritual and through like this new kind of way of seeing life and myself, and I've been able to just accept it as part of the process and do the things I want to do. It's like, it's what we got to do. We got to just work through it, and not let that be the barrier to having our visions come into reality,
I agree. I tell my kids regularly, don't let fear stop you.
Yeah.
You have to get out and do things. You have to not be afraid. I'm starting a new thing this week.
Tell me, I want to hear.
I'm
excited now.
It's so silly and it's so funny. I'm going to learn how to play pickleball. I'm winning a sport.
Cool.
The last time I was in a sport, it was roller derby. And so it's been a long time. But awesome. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm putting myself in a completely unknown place. I don't know anyone there. I'm signing up for a class where I'm going to learn how to play pickleball, which for those of you who don't know is a combination between tennis, badminton, and ping pong. 3 of my favorite fucking sports. Anything where I can hit a ball with a fucking paddle, I'm in. And it sounds like if someone were to re-envision ping pong where you stand on the table. That's what it feels like. I don't know. My first class is Friday. I'm very excited.
I love it.
Yeah, like getting out and like doing something that is outside of your comfort zone that I need to move around. I haven't had a workout routine in like, oh my God, a long time. It's been a long time. And I need to do that because I'm 50 now and I need to like, I actually joined a 50 and over class. It's a senior class. I know. And yet I'm so fucking excited about it. Like, because, you need to do new things. You need to get out there. You need to get over fear of new things, fear of the unknown, fear of new people. Like, you can't let fear stop you. You have to fucking get out there and try some weird ass new thing.
Yeah. And it's like, I think I'm also on a similar journey too. I just joined a gym like a couple months ago. Now I was so nervous because I haven't been super physically active in a couple of years. And then I'm loving it though. It's like it's so fun. I'm doing like this Pilates class and then this running thing, which I hate running, but it's like it's really fun that the instructor's awesome and it's like my spirit feels renewed and I feel like I'm getting to a place where I'm sort of replacing the anxiety and fear and the things that would again be this block with or unhealthy, which is a broad term, but coping mechanisms with these things that are still exciting and kind of bring up those sort of energies or that sort of chemical reaction, but are actually really beneficial. So that's like so fun and it's
It
so good
is.
for you. Yeah. It's
Do
awesome.
things that are scary. Do things that are weird. But
Absolutely.
but if you have a seed of interest, then it makes all the difference, right? Like
Yeah.
I could literally play ping pong for the rest of my life. I love it so much. It's ridiculous. But yeah, and I love tennis. And I love badminton. It's like so I just feel like this is a good fit and I'm doing it.
It's so exciting. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. Thanks. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how many weeks it is, but it's like a couple hours a week and they teach you how to play and stuff. But
That's so cool.
I love the sound of ping pong game. Like the whole like da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, da, and I'm excited. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So go do things, people. Go find things to do that's something you're interested in, but you're scared of because there's going to be people you don't know, and you're gonna have to walk into a building you've never been in before and ask them where the fuck are the pickleball courts. Like, I'm here for pickleball.
Let yourself be afraid and move through it to the pickleball court. Hit that ball.
I found out that the sport was actually incorporated the year I was born.
Oh, cool.
So pickleball has been legally a sport for 50 years. And now I'm old enough to enjoy the senior class of pickleball.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Yep, we got that. Amy says we're so cute together, which I agree with 100%.
Me too.
Nick says love overcomes all, which I always fucking agree with.
Yeah.
Yes, pickleball. Nick, if you play pickleball, we should play. You let me know. Amy also says, yes, do the things. Which I agree. Hey man, it's the fucking new year. Are you afraid of something? Do you want to do something different? Do you want to do something weird? Fucking do some research, ask your friends, figure it out, and then, oh my God, I'm actually doing another weird thing this week.
What?
Next week. A friend of mine here in Columbus is teaching a class. It's even better. Goth dance class.
Oh, wow.
I know, and it's being taught by Forrest Nui Cobalt, who actually does all of the perfumes and things for the Magical Druid. But she's teaching the class, and my friend Anthony was like, "This is happening," and I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "I'm in."
Wow, that sounds amazing.
So,
I love that.
I guess my resolution for the new year is just to jump into things that are going to be weird and scary experiences. But I mean, also, dancing and tennis are the two things and swimming are the three things that I fucking love that are physical activity that I can actually like get into because I fucking hate working out. It makes me want to die. But
you sound like me because dancing and swimming are my two go-tos. And I was about to enroll in a dance class, but I'm gonna be out of the country for a month next month, and I'm just like I want to wait until I get back. But yeah, that's the key, doing what you love. And like,
but you've been doing yoga classes, and that's not Pilates. You did Pilates, right?
Like a Pilates fusion, so somewhat bar and the other stuff. So yeah, it's been good though. I have a very charismatic instructor who's hilarious, so that makes it all the pain worth it. So.
That's the thing. I am walking in cold, right? Like I am a not your average senior walking into this thing, and so like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how people are going to take me. Like, but I'm going to go in there and do the best I can. I'm going to make as many friends as I can.
It's going to be wonderful, I think.
Pickleball league started.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I heard that people, it's usually in terms of tennis, but they're like, if you want to meet rich people, go play tennis. So I feel like pickleball somewhat, maybe you'll get some good business advisors or something too that you meet while you play pickleball. I don't know.
You never know where connections will come from. You never know.
Yeah.
And also this thing that there's naked pickleball, which is a whole thing. Ever since I made a post on Facebook saying, who knows how to play pickleball? Can you teach me? What do you know? Whatever, just to get resources. And then people started sending me naked pickleball stuff.
I love it. I feel like it's all connected.
Again, this is a mainly senior sport, as far as I understand, and so
Seniors like to be naked.
we're gonna see. I will give you all updates. I'll sneak in some cameras and see what's going on. Oh, Amy's going back to pistol competitions. Amy is obviously Amy Blackthorn, all the Blackthorn books, Blackthorn Wellness, Blackthorn Protection, the one where she makes cocktails and all the other ones. But also she is a security expert and gun handler.
Oh, cool.
And so she's gone back to pistol competitions. I'm very excited for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And also Jason says just do the Linus. I think it's a goth dance move. Do you have any idea what that is?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is either.
Me neither. But I'm going to take a class where I'm going to learn all kinds of goth.
So good.
And then I'm going to go hang out under a bridge, evidently, and I'm going to dance these dances.
That's what I was gonna say. Where is it like in a normal class? Are they gonna put like a strobe light on? Is there gonna be smoke? Like
I don't know. There's a dance studio here in Columbus called Flux and Flow, and they host lots of different kinds. And this is like their first foray into this. And so I'm always down to see what weird shit people are doing.
yeah, I love it.
So yeah, so lots of new things. Okay. I feel like I've talked for a long time, and what are you excited about now?
Oh man, everything. I'm excited for my next segue into scary stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited to start on this new book. I'm excited to, work on music videos and learn more about the music business and like how to release a record. I'm going to Asia in February, and then I think I'm going to go to Europe in the summer. So I'm excited to be traveling internationally again. Yeah, like I'm excited to be like in the moment, and I'm excited to have like worked through a lot of grief in the last year and to feel freer as a person, I think. So.
I love that. I looked up my last introduction for you, and one of the things I said there was one of the most well-traveled people. Crazy traveled, because you have done so much traveling. It's interesting to hear that you haven't been doing it so much, but that it's in your plans now. And I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's beautiful. And travel is good for you, people. It's good for your paradigm. It's good for your perspective. Go travel.
Everything. Yeah.
Oh, and Nick says, thank you, Shiva Honey, for reminding me to not fear death, but to celebrate it.
Aw.
Well done, Nick. We're gonna end it here because we have definitely had the most amazing interview. Jean, I also missed
fun. I love it.
Shiva, tell the people where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me lurking in your dreams at night. I'm doing some other in the astral realm. So if you want to dream about me, just like
I love you so much.
Say my name 3 times. Then I'm on Instagram as Shiva Honey.
I'm sorry, I laughed too hard. Say your name. Say Instagram again.
Yes. I'm on Instagram as Shiva Honey, and you can find me on my website, Serpentina, which is I think in the chat log. Serpentina.
I did it.
Yeah. So yeah.
And you can find all of her new pins and altar stuff, and of course both of her books and her deck, and eventually the new record at WitchLab at some point, whenever. But yeah. Shiva, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all you do for the community. Thank you for being an open fucking Satanist. I know how hard that is and how brave you are to do that. And we appreciate it. And I love you. And thank you to everyone watching. You're all amazing. Thank you for continuing to support WitchLab Wednesday Live and my crazy ramblings. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I love you. Say good night. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.